That's better.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Unstruggled Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Glenn. On this episode, we have reached part 4 of our Gastroparesis Awareness Month series. And on this episode, I have the newly voted in queen of gastroparesis, Lauren Crooks, on again, as well as her friend, James Ellis, which, if you can remember, the other day I had Robin Durkin on, and we were talking about the fact that it was very rare to find a man that had gastroparesis. And then Lauren's like, hey, I got one. So James, welcome to the show. Good to have you on, brother.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. Also, I'm the one friend that Robin was talking about having on her list as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. All right. So for those that are tuning in to the episode, either on YouTube or via podcast or on Facebook, Instagram, wherever, for those that have been following, we had Lauren on. We were talking about gastroparesis, which is basically a disease where your stomach and part of your intestines is paralyzed. There's absolutely no information about the disease anywhere to be found. I didn't even know about it until I had Lauren on my friends list to start following her journey. So, James, if you want to introduce yourself and then share with everybody your journey as far as the gastroparesis has been for you.
So my name is James Ellis. I currently live in Grand Junction, Colorado, which is absolutely the worst place to live if you have a rare disease.
Oh my gosh.
And I've actually, this is the most populated place I've been. I grew up in North Texas in very, very rural area. I've been sick since birth. Whenever I was born, they had to take water out of my lungs, and I was in ICU for 3 weeks for stuff I don't know about. I had my first surgery at 5 years old to have my urethra enlarged because like nothing was working right with my kidneys, like all kinds of stuff was going wrong. We still don't know what the actual cause of my gastroparesis was. But, fast forward through many years of vomiting and just feeling like crap, I had my gallbladder taken out in 2007 and immediately went from feeling like, icky every once in a while to I have to puke every day, all day, and it won't stop. And immediately when I first started, that's whenever I found out that cannabis was used as a medication. So I started smoking weed, and it helped. It helped immensely. And the moment the doctors found out that I started smoking weed, they started scapegoating that and telling me that that was what was causing me to throw up. So I listened and I quit. And I weighed 320 pounds at the time. I'm a gainer. I always have been a little overweight. And I was 320 pounds at the time. And I quit smoking weed. And in the 8 months I gave up, I spent half of that time in the hospital and dropped down to 120 pounds.
Oh my God.
So I went from size 44 pants to size 30 in 8 months. It was not pretty.
Wow.
They threatened me with feeding tubes. They threatened me with ports and all that stuff. And I'm like, I'm going to try smoking weed first before I give you guys that, before we go poking a bunch of shit in me. And it has literally been what saved my ass from having to get feeding tubes and stuff like that. So, I'll take the loss of my family because they're very, very much against cannabis use. I'll take that over my life,
Absolutely, any day.
Yeah. So it's just been, and then again, so it's been back and forth while I was in the hospital in Texas, when I was off of the cannabis, they had me on opiates. And so they switched their song and immediately started blaming the opiates for a disease that I had that they were treating me for with those medications. It's like, no, I had this before, and it's been back and forth ever since. I'm 15 years into this and I'm still getting the same grief from the doctors. Like, it doesn't stop.
Oh gosh. So you're the second person, because I talked to Robin the other day. So you're the second person that I've talked to that the cannabis actually helped the symptoms and helped with everything for gastroparesis.
Oh yeah, I was outside taking hits right before you signed in, making sure that I'd be okay to sit here and do this.
I
Because
guess I
I
guess
don't
the
know
good
if you
thing
can
you're in
tell, but
Colorado for that aspect, then, right?
I mean, yeah.
Take that,
Can we talk
FDA.
about
That's actually one of the reasons I moved here, yes. And it's likely going to be the reason I have to leave because the rich people are taking over and it's too expensive to live here now.
Right, right. So, Lauren, how did you and James meet?
first off, before we do that, I want to talk about how there's a lot of differences with people with GP. I am one of the people that marijuana actually does not help.
Oh God, no. Like I tried to get her to try it and it was a nightmare.
It's
Her
actually
anxiety
made
is
me,
not okay.
it's made me very anxious and it's actually made me sick. So I'm the opposite. It doesn't work for me.
Well, we both hope that 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah, the doctors tried this medication called Marinol, which is a synthetic marijuana that they use for mainly cancer patients to help them try to gain weight and to be able to eat or whatever. So that's one thing about GP is your stomach can, just sit there and nothing can digest for a long time. So I took it 2 days. I was fine. I talked to James. I was like, I'm scared to death to try this. And he was like, just do it. I was like, fuck it. So I swallowed it real quick and I was like, all right. So he talked to me and I was like, I don't feel anything. And then I got kind of hungry and I was like, okay, no big deal. The pill, I'll keep trying it. Next day, it was the day before Thanksgiving. I took it and my fiance was here and, I was like, cool, fine, So the next day was Thanksgiving and I was like, you know what? I was like, fuck this. Like, I'm taking this pill, like, cause I'm going to eat, like it's Thanksgiving. I'm going to actually eat and enjoy some food.
And the backfire. Oh my God.
So then I took the pill and I'm sitting there at the table, I ate a lot of food, I'm sitting there at the table and I'm like, all of a sudden I look up at his mom and I was like, how long have I been sitting here? And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, I don't feel good. She was like, are you okay? I was like, I'm really hot. I need to go outside. So I stood up and I went outside. And as soon as I hit the deck, it was like, boom, I just face planted. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? And everything started spinning. I was like, what is my name? Like, where am I at? Like, what is going on? So I grabbed my phone and I texted Josh and I was like, you need to come out here right now. I was like, my heart is pounding so hard. Like, I thought I was having a fucking heart attack. Like, I started panicking real bad. I felt really sick. Like, I wasn't realizing, like, his sister was staying in there and I couldn't think of her name. And I was like, what the fuck? So they called an ambulance, of course, from your in-laws on fucking Thanksgiving. How embarrassing. So I ended up having to go to the hospital. And that's another thing that I've wanted to talk to people about is how shitty we are treated. So from the very first second that the EMS people got there, I was like, I could not walk. I literally could not stand up. They refused to bring a stretcher up onto the deck. They said, you can walk down. And I was like, no, like I fucking can't. So we argued about it for a minute. And Josh finally said, fuck it, and picked me up and carried me down to the ambulance because they refused to bring the stretcher up. None of them had their mask on. This was during COVID. So nobody had mask on or whatever. And as soon as we got in the ambulance, they were like, well, what medication caused this? And I was like, well, they think I have something called mast cell activation syndrome. And I was like, I'm probably having a reaction to this medication because this happens a lot. I just had this reaction to 2 other medications. And they were like, well, why are you even on this medication? And I was like, well, I have gastroparesis. And they were like, do you have cancer? I said, no, I have gastroparesis. And they were like, well, why are you on this medication? Said because my doctor thought that it could help me gain some, appetite and like gain some weight back because I'd been losing a little bit. And they were like, well, you shouldn't be on this medication. And I was like, okay, well, my doctor put me on it. I'm prescribed. It's not like I just did a bunch of heroin. Like, this is a medication my doctor legally prescribed for me. So fast forward, we get to the hospital. When we're getting out of the thing, I felt like I was going to lose control of my bladder for some reason. And the guys on the ambulance thought it was hilarious. And they were like, oh, well, so-and-so likes golden showers. And I remember them saying that. And I was like, well, that's fucking rude and disrespectful. Like, I'm having a really serious reaction here. I don't need to hear something like that. And then when I get into the emergency room, one nurse came in the whole time I was there. I asked for Zofran, and it literally took them over an hour and a half for them to get fluids started, to draw my bloods, to do anything. And I told them that I needed steroids because I know that Solumedrol has always stopped these kind of reactions. They refused that. They gave me 4 milligrams of Zofran, and I said, you know, normally I take 8 to 12 milligrams at home when I'm in my flare, so this is not going to help. They refused that as well. And I said, I really need to go to the bathroom. Can somebody please help me up to go to the bathroom? I need a bedpan or something. They refused to give me one of those. They sat a toilet next to the bed, and they were like, when you feel like you can get up, you can get in, you can use it. So of course I get up, go to use the toilet. I fucking fall out because I can't stand up. So they just literally left me in there, and then they would not let Josh come in. They made him sit in the car. And then about 30 minutes later, they came in. They were like, well, guess what? You're free to go.
Yep.
That was my whole experience.
See, that's a damn shame. And, you know, I was talking with Robin about this the other day. I feel like a policy in the medical profession is treat everybody like they're a drug addict in order to prevent drug addicts. But the people that are actually addicted to the opiates and things like that are prescribed it from their doctor anyway. So the hospital's not really helping anything.
Well, if I can interject on that, one of the things that the doctors really need to learn the difference of is there's a major difference between dependency and addiction.
Exactly.
I take my meds because I'm dependent on them. I'm not addicted to them. I pick them up and put them down as when I need them. There's a huge difference. And so when they tell me that they're worried about dependency, yeah, I'm already dependent on it. Fuck you. Give me my meds.
Right.
The fact is, I'm not fighting an addiction. I'm not sitting here jonesing. They're not working. Pill form is not working right now. So, you know, it's the big difference that is a big fight is I'm dependent on this. I fully admit that. But addicted? No. I live in assisted living, and nobody here would dare say that I have any addiction problems.
Right. Like you literally need it to survive.
Yeah. And only take it when I have to.
Right. See,
I'll try not to take anything unless I have to.
That's a damn shame. I mean, I don't want to put anybody on blast or anything, Lauren, but from what you just told me, I mean, if that was me in your position, I'd be out for somebody's freaking job. Like
I've been to jail for punching a doctor, so
that's true. I put money on his books to talk to him while he was in jail. That's a fact.
Just got off from probation in April.
So that's how we met. We actually met in one of the gastroparesis groups. I know that was your original question, but we kind of got sidetracked there for a minute.
And we met off of one of my posts, which was asking about if others had ever sought assisted suicide. Because I am a firm believer in, you know, mercy. And this is a horrible disease that you don't get an expiration date with like you do with tumors or some cancers. And I firmly believe that in some cases, some people are advanced enough where it should be an option. And so I opened up a discussion, and most of it was negative feedback. But Lauren was like, oh, that's, you know, like this is subject to actually think about and talk about. And we hit off a really good friendship based off of that.
I mean, I absolutely agree. I mean, for people that are so progressed, I mean, there's no quality of life. You can't eat. You know, like Lauren can't even drink water. Robin's water intolerant completely. Like the basic necessities that we need to survive, people with gastroparesis cannot do. So
exactly,
if somebody was at the point, especially, you know, after what I've heard about the medical treatment of gastroparesis patients, if somebody was at the point where they felt comfortable ending their life, I don't think there's. I mean, like I told Lauren and I told Robin, like I have IBS and ulcerative colitis, and I couldn't even imagine the pain that people go through. Like I really couldn't.
You
can. Colitis is brutal, though.
It's just that in an extended form.
Right.
You know, ulcerative colitis. You just think about that. It's like that, but it never stops. Right. No matter what you take, no matter what drugs you do. You know, I'm on oxycodone and cannabis right now, and I'm still shaking and in pain, sitting here sweating.
Right.
So, you know. And
My
then that
doctor
doesn't.
actually like became a doctor because he had ulcerative colitis, and he growing up, everybody thought that he was just making it up because he didn't want to go to school or he was anxious. So that's actually the reason that he became a doctor.
And
So he's told
that's
me
the
how bad it is.
yeah, that was another thing with men is, a lot of times when you're chronically ill, and a lot of times this disease is caused by like autoimmune diseases like diabetes, or any kind of EDS, things like that, mast cell disease. They oftentimes look at, women are, get taken to the doctors, and they're looked at a little bit more seriously for the mental aspects. So they get those
But they
diagnoses.
also say we're dramatic and it's hysteria.
At the
Like,
same,
think
yeah, I was gonna
about
same
it.
time, there's the contradictions here. So we're gonna get to that. At the same time, they completely disregard women's pain. It might as well not be a real thing in the medical world as far as doctors and nurses are concerned. If a woman is in pain, they're fucking lying. And that is something that I have seen is huge. Whereas if
Well,
I say
multiple
I'm in pain, they're like,
sclerosis,
"What
that's what
drugs
they
do you
said
want, and
about
how much do
multiple.
you want?" You know. Well,
Like
yeah, but even
multiple
with my
sclerosis, they said that that was hysteria back in the day before it actually found a name and people figured out that these women weren't fucking crazy.
right, and men are less likely to be able to go to the doctor because we're, A, we have to work to, do it, and B, here in America, we can't afford to go to the doctor because that shit's expensive, and we don't have most people don't have insurance. And C, if you get a diagnosis like this, it's basically a life sentence, because you're then disqualified from future insurance if you lose your job due to your health. And if everything goes downhill, you're fucked, and your family can't get help unless you apply for disability, and good luck getting on that. The only reason I was able to get my disability is because I literally had my court date while I was in kidney failure at the hospital, and called that morning and had my lawyer just put me on speakerphone while I on the bench, and that's the only reason I got awarded.
Gosh.
And that was after 4 years of fighting.
And that's awful too, that people are even having to, because Robin mentioned that she has to go to a court date in order to get her disability as well. And that's a damn shame, because obviously, I know Lauren still has a job, but I mean, I couldn't imagine working through something like that. I really couldn't. And I know Lauren's talked before about working through with a flare and things like that.
Lauren is an outlier in that.
Do what?
Uh-oh.
There you go. You're back. You froze up for a second. Now you froze up again.
What did he say? Lauren is a what?
Lauren's is something.
Yeah, I didn't hear what he said. Yeah, trying to work through this is it's fucking hell too. I mean, it's not like I have a desk job where I can like sit, and like sit at a computer or anything. Like I'm literally on my feet all day, and I walk probably 8 miles a day in that building. So I mean, when you feel like you're gonna puke all day and like you're gonna pop, it's not exactly.
And you're a server, aren't you? A server or a bartender? So
I do both.
So with everything going on, you have to be around food all day long while you're sick. So I can imagine that adds to the nausea and things like that as well, right?
Yeah. Oh. And my sense of smell is very heightened. So smelling, it sucks too when you're like starving to death and it's like, fuck, man, that looks so good. I wish I could eat it. And then there's some times where I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. I am going to eat it. And then I'm like, great.
And then I get text later that night showing me how bad her belly is bloating and how much she hurts.
And then we talk.
Yep.
We've spent many nights on the phone with me crying.
Yes. But
so what did you say? Lauren is a what?
I said that you were an outlier in your ability to hold a job, because a lot of people we know, and especially in the group, they have to quit doing what they're doing so that they can focus 100% on their health. And because as everybody has said, to beat that horse as dead as we can get it, when you have to revolve your life around food, which everybody does, it's and get hit with this disease, it suddenly becomes the only focus you have, because you have to plan everything around how's it going to hit, when is it going to make me shit? And how long,
That's the worst.
how long do I have till I get hungry after I eat it? And will I be able to eat whenever I'm there? Like, so there's so many different variances and, you know, things that you have to take into consideration just to leave the house. So for Lauren to be able to go to work and do the things and survive a flare, you know, doing all of that, you know, she's one of my absolute heroes.
One of my worst, but a good quality in this situation is that I'm stubborn as fuck. So I will not let I try not to let anything like get me down. Like, I'm always ready to fight. So I guess Josh likes to say that my mom has rattlesnake blood, and she's definitely given me that, like, because I won't lay down and die I won't do it easy. I mean, I might be crying the whole way, but I'm doing it.
And that's why they voted you the queen.
It just sucks though. Like, a lot of, like, I feel like a lot of my coworkers and stuff, I know that they get really like aggravated and frustrated because either, you know, I have to call in at a moment's notice, or like, that's one reason that I have this job, is because it's so easy to get shifts covered when you work in the food industry.
Right.
Because it's quick, fast money, so everybody wants it all the time. But I know that a lot of them get really frustrated with me when I feel bad. And just the other day, I got in an argument with a girl at work because we were super slammed and I had to sit down to eat because I was literally about to pass out, because we have this thing called dumping syndrome also. So like, all of a sudden, like, everything in your whole body just empties or something, and then like all of a sudden you're starving. It's like you have a blood sugar crash.
That's a good segue into one of the other questions about the differences in symptoms. Where Lauren deals with constipation, I deal with chronic diarrhea like crazy. Like, it never stops. A large part of that is I've reverted to a primarily liquid diet and a lot of soups. And if I do something solid, I tend to liquefy it and puree it so that it's soft and easy to digest. But it's, you know, I have the opposite issue that Lauren has. So where she has chronic constipation, I'm always trying to run to the bathroom and, you know, making a mess. And it sucks because, again, just like we were saying earlier, whenever it comes to planning, you have to know what food's going to set you off, like how long it's going to take to set you off, you know, and all the different types of things like that. And
There's so many variables.
There's so many variables. Everybody is completely different. And it's a huge source of frustration. And, you know, it's like the one thing that we have as, you know, to come together as like, this is our disease and we don't know what the hell to do about it.
Like, you have the diarrhea, I have the constipation, but like, my issue is like, I try to explain it to people, and I know I've explained it to you before, but like, when you have to, like, have you ever been to the bathroom and for whatever reason have to stop, like something happens and you have to stop, and then you feel crummy all day, and like you feel like you can tell that your bowels aren't evacuated, and like you still feel like you have to go and your stomach hurts? Like, I never feel the relief when I actually go to the bathroom. I literally feel like I live in that state 24/7. Like, it never fucking stops. And that is so gross feeling.
Well, there's a difference of men and women right there. You know, Lauren says your bowels are not fully evacuated. And for men, you know, I didn't shit enough.
And either way, you still feel like you're turtle heading the whole time.
Right.
Like, it's ridiculous.
And I kind of understand that a little bit, you know, with my IBS, because I can go 0 to 10 real quick. Like, I'll be fine in 1 second, and in the next second, if I don't get to a bathroom, like, I gotta change my socks.
Exactly.
And so
I kind of sometimes wish that I had like the opposite, because I'm so tired of feeling so full all the time. Like, I feel like it would be kind of a relief almost.
Right. And this is one of those times where the opiates, like, that side effect is desired. But then whenever I'm in a full flare that shuts my kidneys down, puts me in the hospital, I have to be very, very careful when I take those medications and how. Because if I'm super dehydrated, it'll just make me worse. And it will make my flare worse. And I'll also be out of it and not know how to communicate with the doctors when I get to the hospital. And then they just treat you like a drug addict, and it's back to square one. So
So I know that Robin was talking about this medication the other day called Ritalin, which has a black box warning, and how you can take the pill one time and have a side effect and it never stop. Well, when I was in the hospital,
Shakes.
when I was in the hospital one time, the doctor came in, she like immediately sat like this and was like, "Why are you here?" And I was like, "Well, I have gastroparesis." And she goes, "Do you take Ritalin?" I said, "No, I chose not to because of my reactions to medications." And she goes, "Well, I give that to my cat every day and I love him more than anything and he's fine." I was like, "Oh, and you're the doctor? Okay." And then I had to have fluids because I was extremely dehydrated. That's why this was right when I was first starting to get IV fluids through the infusion clinic before I got my port. And I had a really bad kidney infection. So my doctor told me to go and I just needed fluids. That was the only reason I was there. And she was like, "Well, if you could just drink more water, this wouldn't happen." It's like, yeah, because I haven't
If we
fucking
could drink
thought of
more
that
water, we
before.
wouldn't be in half the positions we are. Like, Jesus. Like, drinking water is one of the hardest things that there is to do with
I live off
gastroparesis.
tea. I live off tea, which has water in it. So it makes no fucking sense why that settles. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
And I drink ginger ale every once in a while, but not very often. Only when I feel like I'm going to throw up really bad. Like now, do I drink that?
And that was a question. It wasn't a question, but it was something I was thinking of because when I was talking to Robin, she said that she can eat Cool Ranch Doritos, she can eat all the candy she wants, and she can drink Pepsi and those things. So what I noticed, I noticed a kind of a pattern. It's like if it's something that has absolutely no nutritional value, and it doesn't have the vitamins and nutrients in it, it doesn't seem to be an issue.
So it's a little different than that, and it's heavily processed, a lot of sugar, nothing else. Right. And it's that extra sugar because your body automatically, like in the stomach, whether or not it does the muscle thing or not, it absorbs the sugar. Right. Like you're going to absorb the dextrose into your bloodstream through your stomach. So when we eat candy, it goes okay because our stomach doesn't have to do any work to digest it. But when you add anything,
4 Reese's right now, I'll be fine.
Yeah, but when you add anything to that, anything solid, and the muscles start to have to contract, that's when we have problems. So there's drinks do okay, sugars do okay, stuff like that. But it really does have to be stuff that's easily absorbed or that's mixed with stuff that helps it absorb faster. So like her tea, it usually is unsweet, but that caffeine helps it absorb a little bit faster because it's a diuretic, and and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because I've literally been thinking about that all day for the last 2 days, trying to come up with some kind of pattern, or some kind of like reason that, if it has no nutritional value, then it's basically like blank eating just to eat without the nutritional value. It seems to be acceptable.
Yeah. The nutritionless, overly processed candy, honey buns, stuff like that, not a big deal because again, it's been so heavily processed that our stomachs don't have to do much. And then B, there's a lot of sugar added to pretty much every product that you pick up.
Right.
And that helps that it be digested easier. But then there's things that go okay at first. And then later that night or later the next morning when you need to go to the restroom, it's back to being a bastard and you have inflammation and get bloating from having to have a bowel movement. So it's just absolutely ridiculous.
The
it never stops.
To me is the fact that I bloat when I don't eat. Yeah. Like me and James have this theory, like if you've seen like the commercials with like the little Ethiopian kids that have the big bellies because they're so malnourished, there has to be some sort of link there with us with being malnourished and the bloating. Like it just, I don't know. I
think it's different than what causes that bloating. So the bloating that those children go through is from protein deprivation. And once they're balanced, their diet has been, balanced out and stuff like that, that bloating and inflammation goes away. What I think our bloating is called systemic anaphylaxis. And it's when your mast cells and another one of the cells that are in the smooth muscle lining decide that something that's in there shouldn't be there and swell up and inflame. And that's my best guess. Again, I'm not a
swear the only
doctor.
thing my
I've been
stomach
doing this
likes
for a
is
while.
the only thing my stomach likes is Reese's.
Yeah.
That's Reese
And again,
or my safe food.
yeah,
Go
and
figure.
again, that's because our sugars are the safe foods that are processed long before they get to the lower bowel.
And I'm super sad, Robin. If you're watching this, I need more gastroparesis earrings because mine just broke. I can't find it.
Well, James, you seem to be pretty well informed on the gastroparesis and things like that. You know, where were you able to get your? I'm guessing you didn't really think to get information until after your diagnosis, right? But where do you get your information, and where can, like, somebody that's trying to figure out what gastroparesis is, where's the best place for them to find the information? Of course, they'll get Google, but then you have to worry about the validity of the articles and stuff.
I honestly don't really know how to answer that. I have a chemistry background, like nuclear and organic chemistry background, as well as mathematics.
Oh, okay.
So whenever I go researching stuff, I go really deep into the stuff and I slog through the most horrific, dry material you can read. But once I do that, I come out with an understanding. I can break it down and, help other people understand kind of what they're going through. And again, with these rare diseases, there's not a whole lot of information to go off of. And the hardest thing is, the hardest thing is to filter through the bullshit. There's so much misinformation. Yeah, there is a ton of misinformation out there. And if you're reading from the wrong sources and they seem legit, it's gonna lead you down a path that will ultimately lead to more disappointment, and your health is going to be the same or worse.
Most
And
often worse.
that's not saying that the doctors are going to do any better, but at least you have the power of medicine behind you to help.
Right.
I feel like I could get a medical degree in like gastroenterology so quick.
Yeah, that's another thing I was talking to Robin about too. With all the shit that you guys go through, like, you guys have to meet the qualifications for some kind of medical career somewhere. Like everybody with gastroparesis should be able to walk in and make 60 to 80 grand a year in the medical field.
So that's actually, like, my doctors take my advice at this point. Like, the medications I'm on are the medications that I advise for them to give me. And so far, it's worked. Since I started the medication regimen I'm on in 2018, I had one big flare in April. It lasted 21 days. My kidneys failed 3 times. Yeah, it was a rough one. Prior to that, it was kidney failure every 3 weeks. So
Is that the one when you passed out in the shower and I didn't talk to you for 2 days and I was terrified that you died?
Yeah, that's the one where I gave myself a good little gash in the side of my head, and they called the ambulance for me.
Oh gosh. So,
But I wouldn't recommend what medications I'm on to most people, because most of them are controlled substances, and with addiction is really hard to fight with these medications. So I'm on a very, very strict schedule on when and how I take these. Otherwise, it's going to get out of hand.
Right.
Idiopathic. Oh no. So there's autoimmune diseases, idiopathic, and then like diabetes.
Right.
So the idiopathic stuff, it can be caused by car wrecks, can be caused from getting sick and having a surgery and then nipping the vagus nerve. But one
It can
thing
be caused by viruses too.
Yeah, and lots of different viruses. The one thing that I have seen that has the commonality is all of them affect the vagus nerve. And so this doesn't seem to be so much a gastric disease or anything like that. It seems to be a symptom that affects the vagus nerve, and our vagus nerve stops working and causes us to have all kinds of different, gastric symptoms.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I've got dysautonomia issues and all that kind of stuff as well, because they all kind of function together.
Yep. I don't know if you know about the vagus nerve, but it's the longest nerve in your body. It starts here and it travels all around your guts. It controls your heartbeat, your lungs, like your diaphragm muscle. It controls your kidneys and your bladder, and then travels back up to the other side of your brain. Vagus is Latin for wanderer, and that's literally, it's true to its name.
Wow. Yeah, the only thing I know about the vagus nerve is the shit I learned from Grey's Anatomy and Dr. Death. So.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, no. The vagus nerve is one of the
there's a
most important nerves in
episode
your
on
body.
Grey's.
What was that? Sorry.
So there's a gastroparesis, season 9, episode 9, I believe. The little kid gets the gastric stimulator.
In Grey's Anatomy?
You what?
In Grey's Anatomy?
Yeah, they had a little kid on there and they gave him the gastric stimulator because he had gastroparesis.
Oh, I gotta go back and look at that.
Yeah, I haven't watched that show.
I know. I've been rewatching House just to see if he mentions gastroparesis.
Yes.
I feel like I would love to have him as my doctor. I feel like he would make me feel so much better.
I think you would get treated a little bit better.
Honestly, yeah. And he's a dick.
Yeah.
So.
His bedside manner is better than most doctors we have to deal with in the ER. That's
Oh, for sure.
That's just the bloody, awful truth of it, is the way us GP patients are just treated. We're in pain, so we need pain medications, but we're not allowed to have those because that'll make your symptoms worse. As if we don't already know that. Right. Then they want to take forever getting us, any kind of fluids, any kind of relief, whenever it comes to nausea medication.
They act like fucking fluids.
Yeah, they act like fluids are made out of gold. Like, it's ridiculous. Like,
I mean, they're not. Look at all the ones I have hanging here. There's no gold in there, I promise.
Except the gold you pay for it, probably.
Actually, insurance is pretty good and covers most of my treatments. I think I've got it figured out now. I know last time we talked, we weren't sure what my insurance was going to do, but I think we've got it all settled out now.
That's good.
I am blessed to live where I do and have the best insurance in the country because of marijuana laws. And we absolutely have put that. Sorry, my cat has decided to join us. But the weed laws pay for our insurance, so so I don't pay for anything. I have no deductibles. I get free taxi rides if I need. They supply groceries, and now that I'm in assisted living, they're giving me an extra $100 allowance so that I can help pay for my cannabis, because that's not something that I can pay for, with my insurance.
Right. That's awesome.
So
that'll never happen here.
Yeah, like I said, I am blessed to live in the county that has the best insurance in the country, and that is, something I've looked very much into, and it sucks because I'm stuck here where all the good doctors are elsewhere.
We got the good doctors, but we don't get the treatment.
Yeah, and I've got the great ability to get treatment, but I have no access to doctors.
So I know Lauren and a lot of the people around here, well, not even just around here, but the people on this side of the United States, they're all going to the same doctor. So do you have a gastro doctor that you're able to go see? And are they?
I have a gastroenterologist, but again, she has no idea and usually defers to my judgment whenever I bring suggestions up, because she's, I'm one of 4 patients that she has here in town. I think there's 7 people with gastroparesis in Grand Junction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like it's not, that's not like it's unheard of here, but it's very,
you can't get the diagnosis.
Yeah, you can't get the diagnosis. It took me going down to the University of Texas Tech in Lubbock, Texas, to get my first diagnosis. And they didn't even tell me I had gastroparesis. I had to request my records and read them to find out that it was on there.
Oh my
and
God.
then go from there. And yeah, they kept denying me help because that was before I was on disability and before I had any kind of insurance. And they definitely didn't want to help somebody that had a chronic illness.
Exactly, like a pre-existing condition law.
Yeah, yeah. You know, you don't have insurance and you're chronically ill, just go die on the street. And that's literally what they condemned me to do for years.
Like this whole gastroparesis thing, man, it has been tearing me apart the past couple of days. I can't. We everybody knows that the medical system in the United States is shit. I mean, they're understaffed, they're undertrained and things like that. And
Yeah.
like I told Robin, I feel like it's just my opinion, but this is my show, so I guess I'm allowed to give my opinion. But it's like they could do so much better if they would just put in the time to learn about the people that they're treating instead of just letting people die.
As you said at the very beginning, they would do 1,000 times better if they treated us on an individual patient basis and stopped looking at us all in lumps.
Right.
Yes, I use medication. That doesn't mean I'm a drug addict. That means I use a medication. That's all that means.
Like, we're trusting them with their health, so they need to trust us that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Like, it needs to be a two-way street, and it's not.
Yeah. And
at all.
And the other thing about like the drugs that they always get on, because I know that anybody that uses cannabis that's watching this is going to hear this and know exactly what I mean. I
already know what you're going to
say. We use drugs because they work. We don't go seeking these things out because we want to be high or because we want to do this thing. We have something wrong. We're trying to figure out something that will help. And since the doctors won't, where else do we have to turn?
Right.
Because we're out of the realm of their expertise. Like, I hate that they say that cannabis is the reason that's causing gastroparesis in patients. That makes me want to come out of my skin.
If you look up cannabinoid hyperemesis, you will find very quickly that it is not a real diagnosis. Yeah. The 2 studies that have been published about it are under 15 people. One was from Australia, and it was 12 people, and they weren't able to get over half of them to come back for follow-up. And then the other study was from the NIH, and it's literally 1 patient. One patient does not make a study, nor does it make a diagnosis.
So me, I get sick from weed, so they would base the whole entire study off me.
The doctor that I had to deal with at the ER told me that about the anecdotal evidence for it, and I told him if I was here for anecdotal evidence, I would have gone to a crystal healer or have gone to church.
Hey,
I came from medicine. You know what I mean? You know what I mean, though, like a faith healer.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry.
Oh no, it's okay. It's okay. So I know, people with gastroparesis are very limited with what they could do, and I know, like me and Lauren talked about, she used to go to concerts and she loved to go to concerts, so she had to prepare herself to go to concerts. So for me, like, what was something that you used to do that you found that you can't do anymore now because of your diagnosis?
So in 2009, I played for a band. I played drums for the band called the Tanquerays, and we got to open for Reverend Horton Heat. That's cool. And I got to set up. We got to do our set, and as I was tearing down, I went into a flare. Like I went off into the bushes behind the bar and just was vomiting up my toenails, and ended up in the hospital for 4 days. And it cost me my job in the band. Like, we were asked to go on tour and we had to say no because of my health. And so they let me go.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, right when I was getting my music career up and going and started, it flatlined it completely. So I gave it a couple of years, tried to get used to being sick, and tried to go to school for sound engineering because music is life. I will never stop. but it yeah, I got into my first semester and I had to walk to school every day because I didn't have a car at the time. And it wasn't that far, but it was far enough to be, taxing on my body whenever I can't eat anything.
Right.
And we got to midterms and I had my first kidney failure. That was the first time my kidneys failed, was in midterm week of 2010, fall semester. And so I was out of school for 3 weeks. I went in, I told the professors what happened and ended up having to drop out. And I've had to do all of my studying and all of my music stuff basically by living through other people. I have a few friends that I've helped get some good bass gear and help get their rigs tuned in so that they have good sound for the music that they make. But otherwise, I've just kind of backed out of society and don't really do a whole lot anymore.
Wow. So how do you have the issue with the I was talking to Robin in the immune thing, and I know she said she literally can't take the COVID vaccine. So how has COVID been for you out there in Colorado?
I am a hermit by nature, so thank the gods, because I have EDS as well, and I'm not allowed to get the vaccine according to my doctor. So I literally just sit here in my room, and if I go anywhere, it's just outside to take dabs because I don't smoke indoors. I go medicate outside and then come back into my room, and very, very limited contact. The only thing that's really changed is, the few times I could jam, we don't do band practice anymore. And I used to play D&D every week, and that's had to go by the wayside for a while.
See, I tell everybody all the time I want to learn how to play D&D, but nobody believes me, and nobody will teach me how to play.
It's such a fun game, dude. I will absolutely send you an invite where I'm actually going to be DMing a game. I should be starting up here in the next couple of weeks if you want to join in.
Oh yes, because I'm a big Big Bang Theory nerd. So like
nice.
Dungeons and Dragons, I'm like that looks so freaking fun, and my wife's like, you're a nerd. I'm like, shut up.
Dude, anybody that's played fantasy football has played D&D just football style.
Right.
That's all it is. It's the same stats, all the same numbers. You roll for things. It's fantasy football is just another version of one of those math games. So.
Well, let me know, because I'm down, because I want to learn how to play.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will let you know when I've got something going.
So James, as we're wrapping up, I've asked Lauren this, I've asked Robin this, and I've got one more interview after this to do. And I want to ask you, given what you've gone through and the things that you're seeing, your tribe members go through, what are your hopes for the future of gastroparesis and for yourself and for the newfound friends that this disease has brought for you?
My biggest hope is that they will see the common outlier and underlying thing that causes this disease. That there are many things that can cause gastroparesis, but ultimately it's something wrong with the vagus nerve, and they can find a way to fix that, whether it be with medications, a stimulator, something, any kind of progress in that direction. Because I think that would be nice. Yeah, that's research and development right there. Because anytime you're studying that and the gastrointestinal system, you're going to be studying the vagus nerve. You're also going to be studying the weird film. I don't remember what it's called that sits around your intestines, that actually the nutrients are absorbed through and then into your bloodstream. Because that's a whole new organ that they just classified a few years back, so they barely know anything about it. So there's a whole lot of things that they need to I'd like to see done, but primary focus is mostly on looking at ways to help control the vagus nerve and keep that signal steady. So just like they do with the heartbeat, just like they do with everything else with the pacemaker, keep something that has a steady pulse so that your intestines and your stomach can churn in sync.
I
and
think
you
that was their
stay
goal
regular.
with the gastric stimulator. It's just not working very well for very many people.
Yeah, I think they're onto something. I just think that they're placing in the wrong spot. Like, I wonder if they need to experiment with that or something. Again, not a doctor.
I think we kind of get thrown to the wolves too, because we're kind of considered as an invisible illness. So they're not going to do a lot of research on that because, we don't look sick most of the time. I mean, you would think I would look pregnant, but you would never think I was sick. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like as long as people keep having that stigma about, oh, it's invisible, it must not really be there, I don't think that they're really going to start doing much. And that's why I try to raise so much awareness, and that's why I'm such an open book about it, is because I want people to know the absolute worst. I want people to know as bad as it gets. I want to tell people as bad as it gets. I want to show people how bad it gets. Like, because if people don't see that, they're never going to believe it, because people don't typically believe in something they can't fucking see.
And there's so many variations on how it can get worse, and the many complications they can come with the different things that the doctors do.
Well, like me, for example, they figured out what they think to be the root cause of what caused my gastroparesis. So they put me on this treatment, which is in turn making other things a lot worse. So a lot of times the treatment is just as bad as the disease, if not worse sometimes. So I'm kind of stuck here. Like, I don't know if I want to keep going, or if I feel more like I kind of want to just stop. I talked to Josh about this the other day. I was like, honestly, like, after our wedding and whatever, I kind of want to just manage my body myself and do what I know works best for me, because I'm kind of done being a lab rat. Like, I'm over it.
And to emphasize that even further, her mindset is something I had 2 years ago, and literally had my insurance company and intervene and say, I'm done trying these black box medications. I'm done trying this shit that keeps making me feel sick and keeps making me worse. Give me something that makes me numb. I don't care anymore. Like, if I'm gonna have to suffer through this, at least make it where I don't hurt. And that's where we've been.
It's like I'm speechless. I can't, there's really nothing to say. Like, they just, all they have to do is just pay more attention. Like Lauren said, she just looks pregnant. It's like, okay, well, when you're 8 months pregnant and then 2 hours or however long, later, you're fine and not fine, but it's, your bloat is gone. It's like, that's not normal. Something's wrong there.
Well, just like this morning, I woke up and I couldn't do our thing because I was really sick. I was on antibiotics, and I know that's what made me sick or whatever.
Right.
Those things are the devil for people like us. But I was taking them and they were making me sick. And then I was at work, and all of a sudden I looked down, my stomach was completely flat, and I was like, I'm cool. So I went to eat, and then here I am now. I look like fucking Buddha again. Like,
right. And then to answer your question the rest of the way, the one other thing, not quite on the medical side, but still very much in the medical field, is the assisted suicide. I'm a firm believer that they need to reevaluate their parameters on who's allowed to seek it. Because I know many, many people that are far, far worse than Lauren and I can even imagine. We can see it, but we can't imagine what they're going through.
Yeah, we have a very good friend with it.
Yeah, I had one that lives just down the street from me. She's so bad that she's literally living off of diluted IV solution with sugar, because she's allergic to TPN and she can't have any of the feeding tube stuff. And I'm a firm believer that people like her and in similar conditions should have an option of a peaceful death.
Right. And
That's one of the biggest things.
What's sad is if they take a dog from an abused home and the dog is so sick that there's no option for any kind of quality of life, they'll immediately euthanize that dog without trying to get anybody to intervene. But for human beings,
if your dog had chronic obstructive bowel disease, would you keep that dog alive, or would you do the right thing and put it out of its misery?
I would absolutely do the right thing and put it out of its misery, because I mean, to sit and watch a living creature suffer for no apparent reason, when you know that you have the power to do something about it, and you don't do it, that's freaking insanity to me.
That makes you a bad person in my book.
It means I completely agree.
And I just wanted to go on the record and say that, like, yes, so like I have gastroparesis and dysautonomia and a few other things, but like you've seen my journey and my struggle, and I'm probably one of the most mild cases that I've met, if that tells you how bad it is for a lot of people. Like I'm still considered very mild as much as I suffer. So I can't imagine.
I can send you pictures of other friends that have thrown up so hard that their intestines flipped over their pacemakers. So they had to be torn open and have their guts unfolded and unwrapped around the line.
Oh my gosh.
I had a friend die from her feet.
I have, and like these are pictures that I have in my inventory right now of friends that were in surgery. They're like, check out what happened, you know, like.
Well, send me those pictures and we'll put it in right here where I'm pointing my finger. I'm going to put that picture in right there so everybody can see it, and then everybody.
Let me ask for permission first.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to do that without permission.
Right. Murder.
Well, I don't have any more.
You thought the other cat was huge. Say hi. Hello.
Can I have a baby that looks like that one?
Right. Mine got bored and went outside.
Well,
all right.
Guys, I greatly appreciate you all taking the time to talk to me. Lauren, thank you for coming on again. And James, it was so great to meet you. And thank you so much for all the information. You know, you're very well informed. And I really feel like, you know, this series for the Gastroparesis, you know, if people who will just watch it and listen to these people, you know, we can definitely spread some awareness and get some changes made, because changes definitely need to be made.
Yeah, definitely. And anything that helps. And thank you so much for doing what you're doing, because this is huge. Because without people like you to actually host podcasts like this, our voices would still be silent. So you are absolutely pivotal in this happening. So thank you.
Absolutely. Anything I can do.
It's nice for people to take notice and not think that, like, oh, they just have a stomach ache today. Big fucking deal.
Yeah, I don't do interviews like this for just anything, you know.
Right.
And we know that I'm an 80-year-old at heart, and I would have been in bed 2 hours ago.
Right.
My sleeping pills are kicking in, and I have acid reflux so bad I'm about to barf, so I need to lay down.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So we're going to let Lauren lay down. Everybody bow down to the queen. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Unstruggled Mindset podcast. James, Lauren, thank you guys. And everybody have a great night. Love you guys.
Thank you.
See you later.
Thank you.